It is 2 o'clock. We will call to order the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission meeting for Monday, January 10th, 2022. America, can I please get a roll call?
Darren Balaam said he would not be able to be here today. Ivy Batmal.
Here.
Scott Benton.
Here.
Lorraine Benuta. Here. Charlene Bybee was not able to be here today. Liz Flores. She is, yeah, she's here. Jessica Gokichi. There she is. Hi, Liz.
President. Oh, sorry.
You're good. Jessica Gokachia.
Here.
Amber Joyner. She should be joining. Yeah. Leanne Macaulay Larson.
I'm present.
Peg Samples.
Here.
Natalie Sanchez.
Here.
And Misty Von Allen was not able to be here. Roll call has been taken. Chair
Thank
Benton.
you.
Oh, Amber.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. We will move on to item 2, which is items for discussion, presentation, and information and/or action. America, do we have any public comment?
We received public comment via email from Joe Morabito.
Thank you. And with that, we will move on to item 2.01, which is the approval of minutes from the December 13th, 2021 meeting of the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission. This is for possible action. And these meeting minutes were emailed out to us. So I'm looking for a motion to approve those minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Samples. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. With that, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Now on to item 2.02, which is the discussion and possible action of setting potential goals and activities for the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year, aligned with Goal 5, Safe and Welcoming Schools of the District's Strategic Plan, Road to Recovery, and a review of our previous goals and objectives of the Commission, soliciting input from the members and potential strategies and areas to focus for the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year. So I'm going to open this up to the Commission. I'm going to actually throw it to Commissioner Joyner since this was a topic that she had asked to be put on the agenda. So I'm going to give her the option to speak first.
Just a second, Chair Benton. The last item was for possible action. I just want to confirm there was no public comment on that. We didn't miss that.
Thank you.
No problem.
There was no public comment.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Joyner.
Thank you. I'm switching here.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Great, thanks. No, thank you. I appreciate this. I think in thinking about wanting a topic like this, I had just started wondering what the jurisdiction of this committee was, because when the COVID outbreak happened, this committee really wasn't involved at all. I know the district created an entirely separate, much larger advisory committee of community members, which was great, but we didn't really have any part of that. And then with the audits going away and the contracts changing and things like that, I just thought that as a group we should really talk about like first of all, what the board thinks that our jurisdiction is, what they want to hear from us about, but then also as a group, what do we care about? What are we hearing people say is important, that kind of thing. And I guess I would just say one thing about COVID, although we haven't been involved really in the past month, my suggestion would be that there might be a role for us. And I think the last few weeks, as a parent representative on this committee, as a parent, I've found a lot of frustration not knowing where to report violations of the
Commissioner Joyner, you're cutting out really bad.
for example, principals and teachers and like strive to get better coverage. Actually, I'm picking up my daughter right now because I don't have anybody. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Or not? I will start driving towards better coverage. So I think there is a role for this group, for example, to play in COVID. As a parent, I don't know where to report violations. Like there have been unsafe situations in both of my kids' schools recently. And I have no recourse. I have no one, I don't know who to call. I don't know if there's a hotline. And I know that other parents are feeling the same frustration. And the kids don't want to say anything because they don't want to get picked on. You know, I've already seen retaliation a couple of times when my kids have spoken up, and it's a very frustrating situation. So that's an example of something that I think this group needs to look at. Like, how are parents able to even offer feedback about whether the COVID situation is safe at their schools or not? I certainly am frustrated with not knowing where to go. So that's one topic I think that would be good for us to address.
Thank you for that. Are there any other commissioners that want to provide some input? Maybe some goals that they would like to see us work towards?
So I can bring up something.
Awesome, thank you.
So one of the things I've been hearing about from a lot of my clients in the community is they are worried about, and it sounds like this is part of the reason this committee was created, the safety of their kids in the schools with regard to possible school shootings. And with what happened, you know, not in our district, but they're curious about what's the process when someone is identified as someone who is potentially unsafe, and what does that look like, and how are parents informed, and is there a way that they can get support and services perhaps prior to it getting to that point? So
Scott, may I ask a clarifying question?
Of course.
Commissioner Sanchez, do you mean the individual who's posing a threat getting support, or the families?
both the individual and then the families. And I thought it was a really neat question from this person I'm thinking of in particular, because the thought behind it was, what if they were worried as a family prior to it escalating to the point of threatening violence on campus? But how would they be approached, and how could they find support for that?
So this would be like if a family member was concerned that their child was a potential perpetrator.
Yeah.
Scott, how do you want to, I'm sorry, I apologize. Do you want us to just be taking notes, or do you want us to dialogue about?
Absolutely. I think it's open for dialogue, I think.
Okay, because I hesitate to say too much, because I don't want to say things about what is occurring and then have it not be, you know, a question, because it could still remain a question. I don't want to still to any conversation.
No, I think the agenda item was posed or put on the agenda for the purpose of dialogue, so that we, as the commission, understand our role, and then we can set some goals for our safety forum based on what these questions are that we're hearing in the community, and the commissioners understand our role within the school district.
So-
Paul, but we do want to stick to the agenda topic and not go too out of bounds.
Right.
And we didn't agendize for like current practices, things like that. These are more so for goals and activities. So I would not advise that we go into current details of what we're doing, because that hasn't been agendized for the public. So we want to keep it at what this committee is looking for moving forward with this committee.
So maybe to that point, with the idea that what are we looking for going forward? So maybe a different way to talk about it too would be, or another way, would be clarifying that process. So the processes that already are in place, helping people know what those are and have access to those.
And Commissioner Sanchez, I think it's fair when we get to, I failed to mention, and I should mention that we should open item 2.02 and 2.03 together so that we have the ability to talk about the topics that we are going to mention for our safety forum, so we can pose some ideas and some topics that we want to discuss at our safety forum. So if there is anything that you guys are hearing in the community that you want to put out there for, such as these, what plans are in place, or what information and support is available to families, that is very well could be a topic that we talk about at the safety forum. So if we can I go back and open both items together?
Yeah, so I would just put that on the record that
Yeah.
we're combining 2.02 and 2.03 together.
Perfect. So we're going to go back and I'm going to open item 2.03 along with 2.02 for the record so that we can discuss both the safety forum topics and then also what are goal settings and activities of the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission.
This is Liz Flores. Good afternoon, everyone. I do see on item 2.02, it does state that there will be a review of previous school goals and objectives of the commission. As a relatively new member, can somebody point me to where I might be able to review the previous goals?
Yes, I believe it was it attached to our agenda on the board docs? No?
I apologize if I didn't. My apologies if it's there.
No, that's a great question, Liz, and I'm looking at Dr. Lamarca for an answer for that.
So Commissioner Flores, we'll try and get you all a document. Miss Devon Allen, she wasn't able to be here today. She was going to piece together the goals and the objectives of the commission. What you will see later is a PowerPoint that Megan Downs is going to present relative to the safety forum, which does provide a bit of a history of the topics that have been covered in the safety forum. But I don't have anything that gives you a historical picture of the goals and objectives of the commission. I mean, there's several of you who've been on for a while. Maybe from memory, you can provide some of those objectives. Obviously, the school audits, some of the safety features, the safety logs,
The visitor
secure
management
fencing,
system.
yeah. Those safe routes to school. There were a variety of things that you guys focused on historically.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Flores, if you'd like, we can certainly ease into Ms. Downs' presentation because I think that'll give you an idea of what we have historically focused on in our safety forum, and that'll give you a good idea of some of the things that we have focused on historically. If you would like Megan to come forward.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. For the record, I'm Megan Downs, Communications Manager for the school district.
Welcome, Megan.
Hello, commissioners. Okay, so I designed this as sort of an overview of all the safety forums we've done before, just to get an idea. It should help that last question of what's been covered and what has not. 2021, that was last year. It was a virtual format for those of you who are involved. We had repeated that 3 times throughout the day. So you'll see the offerings there where we talk about COVID and distance learning, human trafficking, suicide prevention, and then physical, social, and emotional safety. So people could select sort of the breakout sessions that they wanted to attend. I believe they could do 2 in an hour. We had the brief overview, which Chair Benton provided, and then we went into our breakout sections and then sort of circled back to see how it went for everybody. So those were offered 3 times in the day, the theory there being hopefully we'll catch everyone who may have a free lunch hour or may have time in the morning. So we did the morning, lunch, and evening. I think it was 5:30 or 6 o'clock. So that was 2021, obviously done virtually because of all the COVID concerns. 2020, we did not hold a forum. So that year I won't address. We can skip to the next one. Okay, 2019, 2018, and 17 were all held in a very similar fashion. They were 2-hour events. You'll see the locations here. 19, Bernice Matthews. We held it there because some of the discussion was around the door numbering, and that was a safety precaution. That was one of the first schools to have that fully established so people could see sort of how that was working. 2018, Truckee Meadows Community College, we actually partnered this with a student voice event. So there were a lot of attendees at the student voice event, and then we sort of transitioned into our safety forum event. That's why we had it at that location. 2017 was at Reno High School, and that was the first time we had done this format. If you could go to the next slide. All right, so again, sort of how we had structured these three, we had our welcoming remarks. We had the chair provide an introduction sort of the committee and the committee's goals. Also had our superintendent and usually a board member as well, typically the president or a representative if the president was not available. These forums were a little different in that they were only internal WCSD experts. We had a little bit of involvement, obviously, from the sheriff and folks like that, but last year, as you know, we went externally. We had a lot of the expertise of the commissioners, et cetera. So this was different in that we were just focusing on the district expertise, what we offered in schools, so parents could get a good idea of what was happening in our system already and the supports being provided to families. The advantage to this way, at least in our perspective in communications, was that we got a lot of feedback. We could talk about what our current procedures were, talk to families about how that was working for them or not. For our department, it helped produce an emergency guide that we have on our emergency site. It also helped change some of our protocol around how we report on code reds, code yellows, how we inform about those and let families know those are occurring. It added a lot of transparency to our process, which we really enjoyed, and I don't know that process would have been changed had we not had these discussions at the safety forum. So those have been really helpful for us. Thank you. Excuse me. What I don't like about masks is the lint factor sometimes. So, but all right, and so the topics, as you see there, they were standardized through those 3 years, but of course evolved based off news of the day and what was happening. But school visitor management, site security, bullying, mental wellness, emergency procedures, communications, and social media. So families got a chance to attend 2 or 3 of those sessions, have a really more intimate conversation, and then we kind of reported back what we learned. Some of those years didn't include more intense information regarding the safety audits because they were more recent. So we did talk about those. And if you could go to the next one, 2016, totally different format, was the very first time this had ever been done. We chose 3 or 4 geographically diverse high schools throughout the district. And we had sort of a panel. It was more talking at you. We didn't feel that these were as successful. They weren't as well attended. And they're just not as helpful for parents because the Q&A is very dry. You don't get that one-on-one FaceTime to really talk to somebody about the issues that you have. We enjoyed sort of the roundtable format. We just thought that was more successful and interactive. So that's really where we're at for these, and we'll see where we're going for the next year, or this year, I guess.
Commissioner Flores, does that answer some of your question?
It absolutely does. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
And I think it should be noted, Superintendent brought it up as we had discussion about our 2021 safety forum the 2021 virtual forum was the most well-attended forum. We saw, 200 people attend over the 3 sessions, so it was a well-attended forum. We got to see different folks that we might not have seen if they weren't virtually attending.
Absolutely. And I did look up the dates for you. I think that might be helpful as well. I just remembered that I had that. So last year we did May 12th. Normally they've been in April. 2019 was April 1st, and 18 and 17 were both held on the 27th of April. So that late April, early May has usually been a good target for us.
Perfect. Thank you. So I will turn it back over to the commission for some discussion. The other thing that I wanted to point out, I think it's really important that we understand that our work as the commission should align with the district's strategic plan, and it really does align with Goal 5, which is the safe and welcoming schools, as part of the strategic plan. And I asked America to be prepared to show us what that is, and I think it's really important that we just stay focused on that goal. And that really is to ensure our schools are safe, secure, supportive, and welcoming environments where students and staff are able to succeed academically and professionally to the highest possible levels. And I know as the commission has, since its inception, we went from building safety and that sort of thing to, we pivoted real fast to mental wellness and well-being. In a pandemic, we did that. And I think it's okay to retune our focus into combining both of those. It's okay to have the safe and healthy schools. It's okay to combine those. We don't have to have just one focus. And I think we're at a pivotal or critical point where we can do that. We did really well during the pandemic to focus on the mental well-being of our students and our staff. And I think that's an attribute that we really did focus on. Our last safety forum really focused on some things that were pressing. So as we outline what our goals are, I hear that the parents are out there in the community not knowing where to offer their feedback, and we don't have the support, or they don't have the support to understand where they can go to in a time of need. And that's okay. We can offer those things at the safety forum, if that's what we're hearing as a commission. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And I'll just interject. I think the point that Megan and our chair made as far as having external experts, I think that really helped provide some additional context to the forum last year. And then I would also say, and we're going to be talking about this at our regular board meeting tomorrow on our regularly agendized COVID item, you know, our number one priority, and it's explicitly clear in our 2-year strategic plan, our number one priority is to keep in-person learning. And so every staff member, you'll see in my Monday message, every staff member, that is our mission critical, what we are doing right now. And so all of our efforts are around keeping our doors open, because we know that the best place for our students is in our schools and in-person learning. But with that being said, that means everything else that we possibly can is having to be delayed a bit. And so I appreciate the understanding of the commission and looking out further into a late spring type event to where we can get through this surge safely for all the right reasons, and making sure that this next event we can absolutely talk about, and I think you should, like what's happening now, but then also having a futuristic vision. What do you want the commission to look like in 2, 3, 4 years? And to, you know, get to that point where you're creating a pathway, a strategic plan for the commission, so that it's not every year you're having to relook at your goals, but setting some metrics. What is it that the commission wants to be able to do as you move forward? So I'll just add that.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question about that if I can.
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, I have a little bit better Wi-Fi now. Based on what the superintendent just said, I actually think that a commission like this, it's really hard to come up with a strategic plan about what we are and what we should be years out, as COVID has taught us, we don't know what it's going to look like in a couple of years. So of course, I think long-term goals are a good idea, but I also like the idea of this commission being responsive and readdressing those every year. Like I said, we haven't been involved in COVID before. I actually think we need to be. I think there's a huge gap. There are things happening in our schools and there's nowhere to report it. And when we talk about the mental health of our children, if they're going to school afraid of going to school because they're seeing that masks aren't being worn, that's a problem. So I think it does tie into mental health, and it does tie into wanting to keep our schools open. Everyone needs to be following the policy. So I think that this commission needs to be responsive and needs to be changing based on, the needs of the district, the feedback we're getting from parents, the things that we're seeing in our schools.
Thank you. And I think it's worth noting, Commissioner Joyner, that Dr. Lamarcus sat on that committee, and so did Misty Von Allen, and I think they represented our commission well when it needed to be. So I just want it noted that while they didn't invite all of us from the commission to be there, I feel like we did have a voice at that committee.
But they aren't still meeting, are they? I mean, I guess it's been very unclear, just from a parent perspective. Then I'll go back to, it's very unclear, the interaction between those two entities. I don't think they're still meeting, right? And if they are, then that's an issue that needs to be advertised.
Yeah, I would defer to Dr. Lamarca for that answer.
That committee's not meeting right now. The committee last met, or members of it, in the summer when we put together the plan for the 2021-22 school year. And we had been providing as well last year, if you recall, to this commission or monthly updates that basically mimicked what we were sharing with the board, something that we certainly could reintroduce. I think I understand what Commissioner Joyner's talking about, just in personal experience. You walk around the community and compliance with COVID-related mitigation strategies is variable. You go into some places and you think that there is no mask mandate. And so it might be difficult, and hearing that information is important. And if that was a goal of the commission on how to continually strengthen parent connections around these kinds of issues, I would understand why we might do that. And I do think it's related, and it might be a little bit tangential, but to a comment you made, Mr. Benton, about sort of safe and healthy, or sort of this connection between physical and mental health. I'm not sure they are distinct. I think if you feel physically safe, you're more apt to feel emotionally safe, and vice versa. I think there are some connections there. In the last year, just as a recall for setting objectives and goals, you've been given several presentations around not only physical safety. We've continued to do that. You've heard from MJ Cloud, I think, at least 3 times in the last 2 years on safe routes. Roy Anderson has talked about the audits, and we have had a change there, but he has talked about some of the secure perimeters, some of the single points of entry kinds of upgrades that have gone on, or Adam has come, Mr. Searcy has come and provided some of that. You've heard from MTSS, our multi-tiered systems of support. You've received presentations around social emotional learning. You've heard some of the updates around mental health, behavior. Last meeting, you heard an update regarding some of the work around substance use and abuse. I certainly don't want to speak for the superintendent. I do think that there have been questions raised by Board of Trustees members regarding what are the best ways to address substance use, especially given its connection to things like suicide. That would be perhaps an area the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission could provide summary recommendations to the Board of Trustees. I don't know. The area of behavior, I mean, we are constantly trying to focus on that connection between climate and learning, and really climate and safety And if there are specific items board members or commission members want to hear, and they work with you on agendizing it, we can certainly, work toward that. I kind of feel as if the Board of Trustees, at least in my hearing from them, ongoing focus around behavior and substance use as part of that would be worthwhile, because they don't have the time to agendize it themselves.
And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the safety forum topics that we talked about 2 meetings ago. And to Dr. Lamarca's point, a lot of those things, opioid overdose was in there, driver safety, gun safety, and then sex trafficking. So those are some of the topics that we talked about that we wanted to see on the safety forum for this year. And I think those are some of the things that are passionate from those that are sitting on this commission in our work that we do outside of just sitting here today. And I think those could very easily be some of those things that we set goals on. How can we continue that pendulum swing to help with opioid overdose, and fentanyl awareness is really what we were talking about, and the correlation to suicide and that sort of thing. And then we've had the Office of Student Engagement come and present to us, and I think absenteeism is something that we were all passionate about, and that could be another topic at the safety forum. And in our goals is how can that align with the commission? Because I think that goes back to students feeling safe and feeling engaged at school. If they're not safe, they're not going to go to school, right? So I'm going to bring it back to the commission and ask for some defined goals so that we have an idea of what we are moving forward with.
Mr. Benton, can I offer one more comment?
Of course.
And this might come across as selfish. Another area, and I love the composition of this commission. We have the DA's office, we have private therapists, we have UNR faculty, we have Human Services Agency, we'll soon have, hopefully, state DCFS. We have Office of Suicide Prevention. And I think the more this commission could help the broader community understand that educating kids is a community issue, the better off we would all be. We're all connected. Our work with Liz and Juvenile Services is super connected. And the kids are in our buildings, and so they're kind of a captive audience, but we need support as a school district from all of our partners. And I think this commission could probably do a lot of good work in that particular area.
And I'm going to toss it over to legal. She was leaning in to say something.
Oh, I was just going to, since we combine these, if you're looking for any sort of motion, I just wanted to clarify you're looking for a motion for 2.02, and then you'll do another motion separately for 2.03.
Perfect, thank you. And then I also want to bring in Misty's had emailed America her topic, so I'm going to allow America to read into the record what Misty had stated.
Misty had thought that it would be important to have a peer support for youth and a staff support for well-being with all of the things that the district is going through. She felt that that would help.
Thank you.
Would it be okay if I add in on that?
Absolutely.
Like, just to explain that. So,
Is that Ivy
last
talking?
week, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, this is Ivy Botwell. Last week, I was actually talking to Misty about doing a peer support program, because last year in our student voice town halls, especially the mental health town hall, we realized that a lot of kids, no matter what age group, have a lot of difficulty opening up to adults about their problems. And so we suggested the idea of talking to their peers and how comfortable they would be doing that. And a lot of them said that they would be way more comfortable talking to their peers than they would be talking to adults. So that's been kind of our the idea we've had, not only in Student Voice, but I guess Misty's been thinking of for a long time too, of being able to set up programs within each school where students can go and talk to one another, and then be a resource, and even almost in terms of like issues they could talk about their home lives or anxiety or depression. And our idea too was to be able to have students be able to calm one another down with anxiety attacks, and kind of some training for students on how to help each other cope with different mental ailments.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ivy, for sharing. So if we focus on item 2.02, some of the goals that we can set as the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission, if there's anybody who would like to take a stab at some of those?
Just kind of revisiting something that Commissioner Sanchez had mentioned earlier, it sounded like maybe ensuring that there's resource availability for more serious emotional disturbance. Mm-hmm. So I think we talk a lot about kind of the day-to-day anxiety and stress that people have, but then there's a subset of individuals who are suffering at a much more significant level, if I understood what you're suggesting. So that might be a goal, is ensuring that people are aware of resources, or ensuring that there are resources in the community available for that level.
Any other goals besides that one?
Scott, this is Amber.
Go for it, Amber.
I'm sorry, I realize I can't see what notes you've already taken or what goals might already be included. So, I mean, I think an overarching goal is still to continue to inform the community, like continue to hold forums where parents can gather information and also provide feedback about the safety and health of their students. Just as if we're writing out overarching goals of the commission, just to have that in writing, that we would do that every year.
Thank you. I have that written down. Thank you. Any other goals?
It sounded like, based on the comments that were made earlier, this is Commissioner Venuto, that an additional goal might be ensuring that, excuse me, families are aware of reporting policies or procedures for COVID compliance. So just ensuring that people are aware of whatever those might be. I will say, and I recognize that this is a national problem, it's not specific to Washoe County, but I do think having children of my own and working with kids, that kids do struggle to mask all day long in school. And so I don't know if it's perhaps beyond the scope of the commission, so this might not be the appropriate forum, but if there are any recommendations or guidelines maybe that pediatricians have for increasing comfort with mask wearing, things like that, because I should hope, although that might be my optimistic side, that it may be more, the issues observed in compliance may be more just an issue of natural human struggles as opposed to maybe overt refusal. And so if we could find a way to address that, that might be more helpful in terms of increasing compliance with COVID mitigation strategies. But I think I'm probably getting outside of what we're doing here, so I'm sorry.
Well, I'll speak out of turn. I think the guidelines are ever changing. So I think if we put something in writing, they're going to change next week. Tomorrow, right? We won't even give it it's tomorrow. Right. But I like the idea of just ensuring that the families understand the reporting policies that are available to them, and just leave it as that arching statement that COVID compliance, and whatever that compliance is at the direction of the superintendent, who follows the direction of the governor. Yeah. Absolutely.
Member Sanchez, can you go back to your item, because it sounded like you were framing it as well as a parent access issue?
Yeah, and I think Dr. Benuta said it really well, that when there are those significant, severe emotional disturbances, how do parents have support around that, and what services can they access? And also, I think the more that stuff is explained, the less stigma there is around my kid's not going to get in trouble because I'm really looking for support, but here's what that whole process looks like. Because that's, especially from, as a member of a minority community, that's a big fear, is what's going to happen, how is that going to look if I ask for support around this?
So I wonder.
This is,
I wonder just really quickly if it's a general parent access goal or objective. Because it could be some different issue that will prop up in 2 months that their parents are struggling with access.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if we want to limit it to parents or just to the community, because what if it's not the parent that is the one recognizing it?
Yeah, no, I think that would be great. And then goes with Dr. Lamarca's suggestion too, of making sure the community is also involved. And one of the things I was going to ask for maybe this next year, I thought it was so helpful when people would come and present on various things and the different programs that were happening in the school, because there were so many wonderful things going on that I had no idea were even happening. And I think to be able to, when I have that information, then I can pass that along to other people. And so I'd really like to see more of that this year too. That was super helpful.
Awesome.
And can I just add to that? This is Jessica Gogachia. I think even outside of what the school is doing, if we have community partners or community agencies that are willing to do presentations on how they have services or impactful things happening that can benefit our families, that may also be helpful. The community is really struggling right now with psychiatric hospitals shutting down and a lot of agencies shutting down. And so if we have those agencies who are able to kind of help with all of these issues that we've talked about today, substances, suicide, COVID, depression, anxiety, I think it would be helpful to invite the public to share what they're doing for our families or what they can do.
So Jessica, hearing what you're saying, would you want something in our goals to reflect that?
Yes, that would be, yeah. Maybe, I don't know if it would just be ongoing training and information from the school district and community partners in regard to available services for families and students. That was my first stab at the wording, sorry.
Chair, I'll just add real quick. I think a goal that maybe the commission would like to think about is, and it kind of touches on what Commissioner Joyner was saying. I think actually a goal around explaining the reason why you all exist, right? And I think working in collaboration with communications moving forward, but really getting the word out about why it's so important. And I would also offer unique. Not every school district has a Safe and Healthy Schools Commission. And so I think being able to message that actually helps getting all of the other goals out there and the information out there around mental health and substance misuse. But your work and why it's so important to have a Safe and Healthy Schools Commission, I think, is a lofty goal as well, too, but a very important one.
Thank you. Any other goals before I take a stab at this motion? Okay. So I will make a motion that we set goals that ensure there are resources for those that we see that are suffering from severe emotional disturbances. 2, that we continue to hold forums for the parents. 3, that we are ensuring the families understand the reporting policies around COVID compliance. 4, that we have ongoing training, informational sessions, and updates from the community partners. And 5, that we work with communications to promote the work of the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission. That is my motion. Will you press your microphone there?
Is it a first or a second?
Second.
I second the motion that Chair Ben just made.
Thank you, Dr. Benuto. With that, is there any public comment on item 2.02? America.
Sorry, I was writing. No, Chair Benton, there is not.
Thank you. With that, we will take a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, on item 2.03, I think this is the fun part. We get to actually plan some details of our safety forum. Hearing the superintendent and her desires to have the safety forum in the late spring, I think that is something that we saw some success with, so I think we can certainly oblige by that. I'm going to let Megan give us some dates that work well with communications. So I think that's the...
I think, I think we were targeting towards that probably last week of April, first week of May.
Okay.
We could probably, if it works with this committee, maybe nail down if either of those would work, and then I can come back with specific days if we want to talk about. Typically, Wednesdays and Thursdays are sort of our sweet spot, if you will. Tuesdays just too difficult for staff because of board meetings.
Yeah.
So if we could sort of look at those, but then there's of course the discussion of if we're doing the hybrid format or the virtual format, we don't have to be so cognizant of after work time if we're doing it during the day. So just a couple things to think about. Yeah. But if we can look at those weeks and then circle back.
And I don't think I would be not doing our vice chair any justice. She really liked the month of May. It really set well with her because that's Mental Health Awareness Month. So I think that would be ideal for us. May worked well last year. I will just throw my 2 cents in. I think we should do the virtual setting this year because we are at that place of uncertainty right now in January. I would hate to plan for an in-person forum and then have to switch it last minute. And it worked well for all of us. We all got to participate at our comfort level. We didn't have to participate in all 3 forums. We could participate in 1 or 2, depending on how our day was. And I think the parents had ease of access. And the really cool thing about our virtual forums is they were able to go back and review them. They were put on on our actual site through the school district. They were able to go back and view those YouTube videos later on. So we never know how many people we really reached out to. We know that on that day it was a little around 200, but we don't know how many people we really accessed after that. So I personally, if I'm voting for one person, because that's what I do as a commissioner, is I would vote for virtual just so that we have the ease of planning from here all the way up until May or whenever we decide. So that's my 2 cents.
I can't vote, so.
I know, I look at...
I think that makes sense.
And then from here on out, we can start nailing down some topics. I know that we've talked 2 meetings ago, and I think we talked about it at our last meeting. I think the 4 topics really worked well. I think we've done 2 hours in the past. The virtual, it was an hour, and I think we have that option to do whatever the commission wants. Historically, it has worked both ways. So I just want you guys to have an idea of what you guys want to see this year.
And if I could add just one thing that was very helpful last year was having Misty be sort of a point of contact for our office, just because we get into a point where there's a lot of logistics and coordination, so it's helpful to have someone speaking for the committee. So if you could think about that as you plan as well, that would help us. Thanks.
And I don't want to speak for her since she's not here. I don't think she would mind, but if she doesn't mind, I would certainly love to have her do it. If not, I will do it. We work well together. But it is, like to Megan's point, it is easy to host it virtually. It is easy to have that one person point of contact. And if anybody on the commission wants to be that person, by all means, we want you to step up and be a part of that process. So if anybody wants to make a motion for anything in the planning process of item 2.03, I'm open to that.
I make a motion for the forum to be virtual and the beginning of May.
I, Commissioner Benuto, second that motion.
Is that a good enough motion? Is that an okay motion? Yes. America, is there any public comment?
No, Chair Benton, there is not.
Thank you. So with that motion and second, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Awesome. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. With that, we'll move into our closing items. Item 3.01 is public comment. America, do we have any public comment?
There is no public comment, Chair Benton.
Thank you.
America, could you just read, I think when we jumped the gun a little bit on 2, that wasn't our general public comment period. So why don't you say who emailed, because this is the general public comment.
Okay. For general public comment, we did receive an email from Mr. Joe Morabito.
Thank you. Item 3.02 is our next meeting announcement, and that will be Monday, February 7th, 2022 at 2 o'clock. It'll be the hybrid model. We will have both in-person and Teams available to those that need it. And with that, it is 2:52, and I call this meeting adjourned.